Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Bruen, and we are here this week with the East Coast Intensity, Jose Perez. Thank you for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me, man. Been a while. How you think? Thanks.
Very good. Very good. It's been good to get you on here. And like you said, it's been a while, so it'll be good to reconnect and kind of take a deep dive into your pro wrestling career.
All right, cool. Let's go.
So let's rewind to the
wrap.
beginning. Yeah, exactly. Take care. So, like, growing up as a kid, when did you first discover pro wrestling, and who were some of your favorites growing up as a fan?
It's funny. I get asked this question all the time, and I always kind of pause for a second. Like most people, I mean, wrestling was something that I caught on TV, and at a young age, I kind of grew out of it when I got to my teens. Like it was always there, but never wasn't really prominent. So it wasn't until my late teens, early 20s when I got wrapped back up, back up into it. But it definitely, for me, my all-time favorite is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. But I've always been a fan of Ric Flair, Iceman, Pit Parsons, Gentleman Chris Adams, the Von Erichs. Those types have always been a huge influence for me. They were crazy to watch. Some of the stuff they were doing is like a lot of times they were innovating what we see now, inventing, I should say, what's being seen now. What people think now is like, oh, that's so new and fresh. I'm like, no, some of that stuff has already been done. So, watching the stuff back in the in the '80s were definitely the times.
Yeah. Now, rewinding back, you've had different promoters over the years, different promotions. One of your earliest promotions, obviously the NEWA, the New England Wrestling Alliance. You were there working under Rocco D'Alessandro. Why don't you tell us how it was to be in that promotion, a promotion where a lot of guys kind of started around the same time and got their start there, whether it be Power League or the NEWA?
So my wrestling actually started in Power League. And for me, so let me get back. I had a friend of mine that wrestles for Power League that used to work with me. And he was like, hey, I do this wrestling thing on the weekends. Why don't you come on down? Let's have some fun. I'm like, crazy. I said, sure, why not? So I go down on a Sunday afternoon, down to some church in their basement or whatever. And I was hooked. And for me, wrestling, there was whatever I seen on TV, which is WWE, or F at the time, and the New England Wrestling Alliance. Because they were on public access. So I'm like, I want to go there. I want to do that. This is like big thing. They got a big ring. There's actually fans around. I want to do that. I had a big thing about wanting to destroy Gio Giovanni. It was just one of those type of things. But it was at that time, independent wrestling was very kind of structured per se. And it was like you had to kind of like know somebody. And a lot of people don't realize is the way I got into the NWA was actually through my wife, which has no affiliates to wrestling. Just so happens that she was taking classes and was in the same classes as Tiny the Terrible, which was part of the NWA.
Yeah.
They got to talking. We met up. Him and the late Anthony Ruffo kind of brought me on board and became El Diablo, which is who he created, surprisingly enough. And the rest was quote unquote history.
Anthony created El Diablo?
Between Anthony and Tiny the Terrible, because they wanted me to come in because I had the devil mask. He was doing like the Dambula gimmick, so it just kind of all fit at that time.
Yeah.
So it just stuck to me. So I just kind of made it stick. At that time, I had wrestled in high school, so I had a little high school wrestling background. Plus, I also had a little jiu-jitsu and taekwondo background. So I was able, and I loved the lucha libre style. So I was able to kind of mix that in. Nobody was doing it at that time. Though at that time when I was doing that, I wasn't really per se trained. I was still, very backyardish. The only training I had was through the AWA with Wolverine. But then once I got in there, Once I realized I really liked Gino, I didn't want to kill him anymore. um, but I seen independent wrestling in a whole new light because once I found out about them, I found out there was a whole lot more wrestling outside of this, and it just got bigger and better from there.
And for the fans that don't know you as El Diablo, tell us a little bit more about that character, a little deep dive. You know, the look, the how it all came together.
So I didn't really. So when I was in Power League, I was on the name the Crypt Keeper, because again I had this skull mask. One of my favorite movies in horror is one of my favorite genres is horror, and one of my favorite characters was the Crypt Keeper from Creepshow. So it kind of evolved from there. But when he came up with the Diablo stuff, I end up morphing in like some tassels to the mask and kind of giving more of a lucha flair. Um, I was going with like full gi pants with fully airbrushed on flames, and then I just started adapting the style. I At first it was kind of like a martial arts style, so I did a lot of kicks. Um, I started doing some very basic flips and things of that nature. Um, but it just kind of, as I progressed and morphed, I started watching a lot of Benoit, and a lot of Eddie Guerrero at those times. So I started watching a lot of that. ECW was also very prominent. It was starting to become something. You got to figure this was 90. It started in 93. It's probably like 95 ish in that general era. I started watching a lot of ECW. So I was able to catch like, Psychosis and Rey Mysterio and all those guys. So that started made me want to do more and practice more. And then I ended up meeting a gentleman from Puerto Rico that used to wrestle El Bronco too. I started training with him for a little while, a few months in Pawtucket. I'm sorry, in Cranston. So I was able to adapt more into my repertoire that way. But it was a fun time. It was a in wrestling, you have a hard time trying to find yourself sometimes. Some people can find it quick. Some people take time. It took me a few years to find myself, but in a few years, I was able to adapt that character, and I was actually getting booked a lot because of that character. In some ways, um, there's a young gentleman right now named Ichiban. It's kind of like him. He started out. I've had a conversation with him where he's like, "I'm all done with this." I'm like, "Nah, it's a bad move, man. You might want to just keep this. I'm telling you, you're gonna do some big things with this." And look where he is now. So it's kind of that same kind of feel where I was like, I became comfortable in it as if it was like my second skin.
And your point of view, what was it like working for Rocco D'Alessandro? Your personal experiences.
Rocco D'Alessandro is an interesting cat, man. Him and his son were an interesting cat, but I would not be having this conversation with you now if not for the opportunity he gave me, along with a lot of individuals like Matt and Kyle Storm, again Anthony Rufo, the midgets, um, a few others that were in. Um, he was uh he was an interesting cat. He was he was an older guy. Him and his son fought constantly, but he looked out for the ones he liked. I ended up being one of the guys he ended up favoring because he seen I was like I'd be one of the guys to be first there, first to arrive, last to leave for the most part. Even to this day, where I'm not wrestling anymore, a lot of times I'm still one of the first ones there. I'm one of the last ones to leave. And I think he took to that. I was dependable. So he took a liking to that. We became real cool after that. For a while. But he was definitely an interesting cat. That for those that worked for him, they know he was an interesting guy. He was an interesting guy with a big heart.
And you mentioned your lack of training early on. Where did you end up picking up training along the way as you kind of became comfortable with the business?
Well, in New England there wasn't a lot of schools. The only notable school that at that time that I can remember would have been Killer Kowalski's. I had the opportunity to go train up there once or twice with Anthony. Not formally a student of him, so I'll never claim that I was. My formal training ish, if you really want to get into that, would be when I met with Savannah Souza, which would have been through at the time Yankee Pro. I had an opportunity to go to I've trained with. So nowadays, everybody talks about these seminars. Oh, this guy's doing a seminar. There really weren't seminars. There was like an open ring, and it just so happens that a talent would have been there. When I left NEWA, started leaving, branching out in NEWA, I had found Salisbury Beach. There's a place called Champs Arena. So I was able to start wrestling out there, and they were bringing in. This is with uh, Callahan. What was his name? Calhoun. What was his name, I
Uh,
believe?
John Callahan.
Yeah, John Callahan.
Yep.
He was up there. That was his thing, and they were bringing in like Cronus and Perry Saturn, guys like that. So I would be at ringside, just like sucking it all in and getting opportunities to work with those guys. So I try to get in anytime I get to a building. I try to get as much ring time as physically possible, whether it be with somebody at my level, somebody under my level, somebody above my level. I try to go out, but I didn't get formal training until I got to about Yankee when I met up with Savannah Souza, and that's when he started teaching me like some of the psychology aspects of it. And it's like maybe you might want to do this and change this out a little bit. Um, Another guy that was kind of early on had, as I worked with him here and there, would have been Bob Evans. Would have been somebody else that I don't credit for me, but I don't think I've ever really told him that he had an impactful influence on me. Just listening to him, how he worked at shows and how he addressed certain things with certain people in certain times. I kind of soaked a lot of that in. And later on, in years, I had worked a show. I believe I was already on my way to finishing up. I had worked a show out in for APW, and he was on that event. And I believe I worked Luis Ortiz, and I went in the back, and as normal, we talk over stuff, and we're finishing. And Bob was there. And I'm like, "Hey, Bob, did you watch the match?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You have anything for me that you can give me on?" And he had this bewildered look on his face. To this day, I remember that. He just had this look like, "You want me to?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Anything?" I said, "Yeah, I'm on my back end, but I always want that feedback." And he was kind of taken aback, and I was like, he was like, "I gotta give you any input." I said, "Just make sure you put your head up on a cell. Like if you're pinning somebody or you're getting worked on, just put your head up," which is a bad habit I used to have of mine. And when he told me that, I was like, "Huh." He goes, "Everything about the match was fine. It was just," he goes, "you have a tendency of putting your head down, and that's what sells you." And then it's weird because I knew that, and I never realized that I was putting my head down. So I had to go back and watch the match and be like, "God, son, damn, you're right."
Yeah.
So I give Bob some credit. I don't think I've ever really actually told him that, But yeah, my formal training started with Savannah Souza. Brickhouse
And was
Baker was also also an early big influence too. Even though we were kind of he was into it a little longer than I was, but as I got together with Brickhouse, he actually taught me a lot also.
and was Brutal Bob Evans there in Power League when you got your first start as Crypt Keeper?
Excuse me as I scratch my eyeball. Um, I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't remember if Bob was there. To be honest with you, you are probably gonna say some stuff to me in this cast that I'm gonna be like, let me think about that for about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I don't. There's a lot of stuff I really don't remember about it. Maybe it's one too many chair shots, which I took a hellacious one at one of your shows, which I still
Oh
have the
yeah.
dent, which I still have the dent over here for.
Oh man. Well, let's talk about YPW a little bit. Yankee Pro Wrestling, obviously, New England Wrestling would turn into Yankee down the line. Yankee Pro, PAO Hall, Fall River, big location for them. They have some iconic shows there. It's an iconic feel being in that facility. You
Mm-hmm.
obviously a big part of that venue, jumping off of the balcony many times. And
Yeah.
what was the experience like working in that venue specifically, and Yankee Pro Wrestling at that time, working under Silvana Souza, Joe Eugenio?
Yankee Pro was a time, man. It was a vibe. That building is by far for me my favorite building that I've ever wrestled at. Um, it was just something about that place. I mean, we used to pack that place. There'd be times where you couldn't get a ticket. It was just, and there were times that there'd be nobody in there. It's just that's how the business is. But it was a time, man. We used to have one of my first experiences going there was when Savannah Souls was when I was starting to go up there. They used to do these TV tapings. I don't know what TV. Um, not sure. Internet was not really a thing, so I'm not really sure what TV was being done. Um, I don't think I've ever seen any of the footage. But they were running 30, 34 matches in one day.
Wow.
It was insane. There'd be tons of guys all running around, and we'd be running a whole bunch of crazy TV matches. I'd wrestle 4, 5, 6 times that night. Yeah, Yankee Pro was the time. Joe Eugenio um, was a was a strong businessman. Um, he he can rub off the wrong way on people until he becomes friendly with you. But he was never a, at least for me, never not to mean to swear, but never a bullshit guy. He was always up front with you. There was no, it was this and that was it. So once I got to wrestle there longer and understood who I was and how I would do things, we had a little falling off for a little while. It was just the nature of the beast. I had a big head, uh, but he was always fair. He was always fair, and then he moved. He had it. Joey Gino having his own building up in New Bedford, which was great. So they had like the ECW vibe. He allowed me to do some stuff that nobody else was even attempted to do. With regard to like the hardcore stuff, he was the guy that was bringing hardcore to high school gymnasiums, where people was like tiptoeing around doing any of that stuff. And things like blood and stuff like that was very common in the wrestling business. But when you're doing a sold show, like a telemarketed show, um, there are like boundaries to it, and I think he pushed those boundaries a lot and gave guys like myself and Big Dog and Colossus, um, those avenues to be able to do things a little differently than your regular wrist lock and hammer locks type stuff.
Yeah.
So he was always up there.
Let's talk about some of the heavyweights for Yankee Pro Wrestling. You had Big Daddy Kahuna, you had the Reverend Redemption, and of course you had Colossus, like you mentioned. What are your memories of those three individuals over the years?
All right, three fun individuals. Um, I'll give you just real quick funny story. We did a show up in Maine, up in East Bum, Maine, somewhere. I forget. Um, and like the whole town closed down for this event. It had to be like 2,500 people there, and we did a. We always used to have a battle on these shows. We used to always do a battle royal, just like a filler, just kind of just have a battle royal. And somebody had somebody had told me, it's like, oh, there's a big ass, it's a big ladder. Let's someone get the ladder involved. He's like, Jose, you want to jump off the ladder? I'm like, sure, 2,500 people. Yeah, I'll be the idiot. I'll jump off the ladder. And Kahuna was the guy that was in the ring that I was supposed to jump on. Well, what they failed to tell me was this ladder was 15 feet tall. So when you
Oh,
look at like Jeff Hardy jumping off these things, yeah, this was tall, and I didn't judge this correctly. So when I jumped off this ladder, I didn't jump out. I just jumped down. The ladder kicked out from under me, and I went curling to the floor. And if it wasn't for Kahuna being as big as he was, his back being the size of a Volkswagen truck, I landed right on him and bounced off him. Hit the floor, hit the mat, hit the floor, and that was it for that. But the reason why I say that particular event because that night it flows into Redemption. We stayed at an inn up there, so it was a paid show. So we had hotels and everything. We stayed at a motel. It was all covered, and we get a knock at the door, and you used to go to these out of the way motels. You can't. Me being a horror fan, you can't. You get a knock at the door at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. You kind of get a little nervous, and so I peek out the window and see, and I, like an idiot, I open the door, and there's Reverend Redemption plastered with a lampshade on his head. And he's knocking on the wrong door. And he's just like, boogie boo. And I go, what the hell's wrong with you? And he's like, oh man, my bad. Wrong place. I'm in the wrong room. He was like 2 rooms over and whatnot. But Reb was, God rest his soul, Reb was one of the biggest men with even a bigger heart. he was one of the coolest individuals I've ever had the opportunity. I didn't wrestle him much, um, but the times I was able to get in the ring with him, he was always um, very giving and very just just a fun person to be around. And Kahuna was the same way. Kahuna was just you would expect him to be as big as he is to be slop and stuff like that. He was always very safe. Then I move on to Colossus. And for those who don't know, Colossus is New England's version of like the Big Show. He is a big individual, and he didn't mind just being rough. So unfortunately for me, I was in that stage of doing more of the rough style. So I get stuck with him. I got stuck with him a few times. There was an incident where he was supposed to give me a big boot, and there's a video of this, and you might have seen the video. I don't know. If not, I have to find it and show it to you one day. He, I'm selling up. He's supposed to give me this big boot. He misses the big boot. He overextends. It doesn't really. He misjudges how far I am, and doesn't hit me with the boot. So his first reaction was to come down and straight punch me in the face, and hits me in his hand. His hand is about the size of a big can of vegetables, and he hits me square in the bridge of the nose. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised he didn't break my nose, but he hit me so hard that I ground my teeth. I felt like I had dirt in my mouth from me grinding my teeth from it. And if you ever watch the video, you can, for that split second, you can hear the of the punch, and the whole crowd goes, "Oh!" I couldn't sell it. It literally stunned me to the point where I was just like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." It was. We laughed about it later, but it was just like, just from now on, just stay over there, stay over there. But again, Colossus is a big dude, and was just very straightforward. He was a straight shooter. It was just like there was. It was like, we're gonna do this, and you work with what you had. But he was always very giving. That's one thing I'll say about all three of them. They were always giving. They were always ready to do whatever. They always thought, especially the newer guys coming in, they were always like, "What can we do to get the new guy over?"
Right.
That's one of the biggest memories for me. And I adopted a lot of that.
Yankee Pro would go on to have a sister company in SCCW, South Coast Championship Wrestling. They would often do split rosters or a lot of the same guys on the same shows. Any memories from South Coast Championship Wrestling?
Oh yeah, a big one. Never worked for him.
Never worked for him. Okay.
No, if I remember correctly, I might have done one, but I don't think I really wrestled for them. Only because I think at that time, what year was that? Do you remember? Offhand?
Probably 2000, 2001.
So around that time is when I started doing Primal Conflict, and I was doing a lot more bookings in other places. So I didn't really have a lot of time to go them. So when I started doing stuff with Primal, um, that's when the split started to happen.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that. So there's a lot of backstories where there was a lot of stuff that went on around that time. Savannah Souza had left Yankee Pro by that time. I have to understand what happened. Savannah Souza at one time had fallen out and leaves Yankee Pro. He eventually ends up at NEWA along with Steve Bradley. Steve Bradley was at the cusp of signing um, somebody with a chip on his shoulder, which I get. You're at that point. I get it. Um, he was out. He was in the process of going out there. I had then went back to Yankee, and I ended up taking the book over at Yankee, where I was taking care of the backstage, put the storylines and everything else together for a little while. He had to fall out with the NEWA. Savannah Souza returns to Yankee out of nowhere after had spreading a lot of rumors, a lot of lies, a lot of stuff that went on. Um, I had a big gripe with that issue, and again started doing stuff with Prime at the time and parted ways. And a lot of situation happened where one of my last events that I had there was when I had it was a young Don Vega was in the match. So Don Vega was working with Steve Bradley. Something had happened. We were doing a storyline where I was a heel at the time, where I was kind of like these banditos who were trying to bring in this young Don Vega and didn't want to do it, didn't want to do it. He was wrestling Steve Bradley. He was supposed to beat Steve Bradley via like a disqualification type deal. Steve did not want to hear this. And then what ended up happening, they went outside. There was a chair involved. Steve Bradley gets hit with the chair, no sells it, takes the chair, wild swings it at Don Vega, hits Don Vega in the back to the point where I thought he broke his back. That's how hard he hit him with it. And it didn't hit him with the flat side of the chair. He hit him with the side of the chair, which ignited a fire into us. And we ran out. We ended up going to the locker room, and he said a bunch of words, and it ultimately turned into me punching him in the face and knocking him down the ladder, down the back stairs. Yeah. Um, and I was subsequently just told to go home. So I went home, and then I came back to the next show, and I was told I shouldn't be there, and things of that nature. And I was like, that was it. So that's when we kind of had fallen out, and I started doing stuff with Primal, and trying to elevate with Primal. But at that time, around roughly is when South Coast started forming at that point. So I was already gone by then.
Okay. And kind of going back to the NEWA a little bit, some of the other stars that were there, of course, your brother-in-law, Kevin Charisma, at that time was Double A, Antonio Adams, and a lot of people don't know that is your brother-in-law. Kind of give us a history of Hugo, Kevin Charisma, Altitude, however you want to remember him.
Kevin Charisma, my brother-in-law, man, he was he wanted to wrestle. I brought him in. We worked and we trained and got him started in that, and then he started having fun. It was great because he was a small cruiserweight style, and that's what he liked to do. And he was starting to pull off stuff that guys weren't doing at the time or scared to do, and he would have no problem doing it. And we just like anybody else, we just progressed. He just progressed in where he wanted to go in wrestling to a certain point, and he enjoyed what he was doing. It was just I think it was just an easy fit. He liked wrestling. I like wrestling. It was like, come on, let's do this. Let's try this. Let's have some fun with it. And it kind of just progressed from there.
And earlier on, you mentioned Anthony Rufo, the late, great Anthony. He was, of course, Stambula, as you mentioned, early on for NEWA, eventually became Marvin the Maniac, and then went on to, kind of help create UCW, Unified Championship Wrestling, where he was known as Mr. Troubleman. What are your memories of Anthony Rufo here in the New England scene?
Man, Anthony was Anthony was a special person. Um, Big guy, another big guy with a big heart. Um, we traveled a lot, man. Funny story, kind of disgusting story. We I had mentioned earlier about Salisbury Beach, so we were at one of these little training things before a show, and it's we were the only two. It was myself, Rufo. Then it was only two, as in indie guys. The two of us and Perry and Cronus. And we were just going over some stuff, and I remember Anthony slamming me down and then going for a big leg drop, and he hits the big leg drop. I'm like, and I had paused for a second. I'm like, I had to go to the bathroom, and I ran off to the bathroom, and I did what I did because he knocked it out of me.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things we joked about for a while, how Anthony knocked the shit out of me. And but yeah, we were close for a good while. In and out of the ring. He did a lot of good stuff, and he always tried to reinvent himself in some way. So he was able to do a lot of things. His passing was a tough one, but he was fun. We had a lot of fun stuff together with him.
Some of the referees in the NEWA, Bob Costa was the senior official for a while. Of course, you had Ish Perez and Sean Markey. Any memories of the referees there?
Ish Perez was just a cool cat, man. He was just very like, hey, what's up? What do you need to do? And that was it. He was always very, very laid back. Uh, Costa has a little more kind of like, you know, Jackrabbit to him, whatever case it may be. But they were all fun. Sean Markey was Sean Markey. Sean Markey, he was the same in and out of the ring. He he was cool. At times, the butt of the jokes. You know what I'm saying? But he rolled with the punches. Uh, but he was the dependable guy.
Yeah.
At least from my knowledge. Other people might think differently. Every time I knew when it's time to do a show, he was there. He'd be the guy that was there, lifting this, pulling that, moving this. He was always there. So he was always the dependable one. So it was always a fun time with them. There was really no. The referees always got along. There was no issues, whatever the case may be. We just had fun.
And hardcore wrestling, you said, obviously was a big thing, kind of mimicking ECW, which was popular at the time. So it was kind of all over the New England scene for a little while there. It started mostly in Yankee Pro Wrestling, which you were a big part of, and then would go on to Primal Conflict, like you mentioned, PCW, owned by Donnie DeLuca, Studley Steve Stallion. Tell us about how that promotion started, how your involvement started with that company, and what your run was like there.
Um, so a lot of people realize that was Steve Stallion's brainchild because of course we're all wrestling, we're all ECW fans. Um, Rocco Sanjo was the behind the scenes guy. A lot of people don't realize that he was
I
the
didn't
money
know that.
guy. Yeah, he was the money guy. So my involvement came in. I was booked. I mean, to know Stallion is to know Stallion. Stallion was not the easiest person to deal with. He was very big headed. He thought he was king king stuff. He realized that definitely when he started doing the indies that he wasn't. But then he started when he decided to run Primal, and he had brought myself and Vertebraker, my brother Lorenz as talent. Um, Realized that he had needed help in something, and that's where I came in for the booking aspect of it. I was like, let's have some fun with this. Just let me have my fun, and that's when we started collaborating on our different ideas and trying to pull things off. And yeah, I mean, to the most part, imitating ECW for a little bit, and for a small time, we kind of had that vibe. We started developing stuff um, almost on the same platform, um, but with our own little vibe to it, I guess. Which is kind of like a lot of promotions kind of start. You have the same format, but you add your little twist to it. Uh, but we were able to do something that was missing in New England that nobody really wanted to touch for sake of backlash of I'm gonna get a building closed or get this. I'll have to give credit to the people that ran Stars, um, the place in Johnston. They didn't. They were like, "Is the check gonna bounce?" That was all they cared about.
Yeah.
That was all they cared about. It was a small hole in the wall place that nobody I don't think even knew was there, and we ran. I think we did one show there. There was probably 10, 15 people in it, maybe. And but we ran it. In fact, I remember this one vividly because it was a show where it was in January. It was the same weekend as my wife's birthday. I was in Worcester, Mass, for an event. Um, we had Sandman on the card the next day for Primal, which I had to go to Boston to go pick him up from a completely other story. But that night it snowed probably a good foot and a half. It was like, a little bit of a storm coming through. We're like, all right, great, not a big deal. But it snowed a good more than 12 inches. It was a lot of snow to the point anybody else would have canceled. We were like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, well, we're gonna do the show. The ring's already in the building. We're gonna do the show regardless, whether we have nobody here or people here. I mean, if not, all the boys just in the audience, and we'll film with all the boys in the audience. So we already paid for Sandman to be here, so you might as well just do it. So I remember getting to the building. Building was not plowed. There had to be again 12 plus inches on the ground, and I might be wrong on the time, right, but I want to say around like maybe 1:30. I think the show was at 4. Um, Me and Donnie were just going over stuff, going like, yeah, well, we're just gonna sit the guys by the ringside and just do the show the way it is. We just film it. It is what it is. Until we get a knock at the door, and my wife is like, uh, babe, there's somebody at the door. I'm like, who? She's like, oh, some guy with a kid out there. So we're walking outside, and run down and walk outside. Can I help you? I was like, hey, yeah, you guys still running that wrestling show today? I couldn't help but like open the door and just look outside and see all the snow you just walked through, and kind of like, is this a rip? It's like, she goes, yeah, that's where we came down. We just came down from Boston, for the show, and then we see the snow. We're like, so we're like already here. I'm like, yeah, yeah, we're doing the show. Yeah, it's not until 4 o'clock, whatever. He's like, no, that's fine. We'll go down to McDonald's and we'll just grab some meat. We'll be back later. I need 2 tickets. Sure. Me and Donna look at each other like, I guess we're gonna do a big show in front of 2 people. So it worked for me. So we go off back in the building. We're doing our thing. My wife, we get a phone call, a phone to the building, and they're like, "Is the show still going on?" My wife's like, "Yeah, the show's still going on. That's such time." All right, cool. We just want to call before we go down. We'll make sure that there's 5 or 6 of us coming down. Sure, come on down. I guess we'll get somebody else to plow the front of the house, front of the building.
Yeah.
It had to be about maybe, I don't know, like 2:30. My wife comes to me. She's like, "Hey," she's like, "Babe, now what?" She's like, "You and I might want to come outside." Now what's the matter? She's like, "You might want to come out. Just come outside." So, have you ever been to Stars?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you remember how Stars had that front foyer, then you walked up the stairs and you were in the room.
Yeah.
So when you're in the room, you couldn't see anything outside. So we would never know what was going on outside unless we walked through the doors into that front part of the foyer.
Right.
Me and Donnie walk outside. We see the guy and his son are the first ones in line. We see, and then we look, and then there was just enough glass I could tell there was somebody behind him. We stick our heads out. There's a line that goes the whole front of the building and out to the back of the building, all the way to the back of the building. That had to be about 200 people, and they came with shovels and shoveled the whole parking lot.
Wow. Wow.
We were blown away. They literally shoveled a whole section out so that people can walk. You know what I'm saying? People could park their cars, whatever the case may be, and they were all ready to go. And we had a very unique fan base that to this day I don't think anybody has touched per se. Where we had fans that we were called ring crew, just assistants. They would come down, help us set up, do whatever, and then they would go outside, stand in line, and buy a ticket just to be part of this.
It's crazy.
So we thought we might have, all right, at this point, well, we'll have 15, 20. We knew we had a bunch of people that were there for setup, plus the people that called and that guy and his son. We end up having like 150, 200 people like in line, ready to go. And
What a
it was
feel
like
good moment,
yeah, it was like red alert. We were like, guys, there's people here. Like people are throwing things. Everything. It was such a different. It was a memorable situation for me that I could not believe that people would be that invested, not only in wrestling but in a product that we had, that they would go to that length and didn't care. And when I tell you, it snowed bad. It wasn't a snowstorm that people expected. The meteorologist was like, "Yeah, we weren't expecting 12 inches. They were expecting like flurries and stuff like that." And we got hit with that much. So it was crazy. It was a crazy series, but it was one of the best times. It was one of the best times. It was like we actually did something fun and different here that people actually enjoy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the time.
What are some of your early memories of Danger Boy, Alfredo, and Wolverine?
They've always been. I mean, they're to this day. I mean, they're Danger Boy Alfredo. Woo! Uh, Alfredo Wolverine was the guy. He was the guy in the area that people knew from the TV. Wolvie was the loudmouth, energetic. My fondest memory of Alfredo though was Alfredo. I think might have gone at one time was going through a complex about losing his hair, so he used to always wear a bandana. And I remember I chopped him once, and his bandana fell off, and he lost his shit. He just kind of went just nuts. He was like, oh my god, oh my god. I felt like he was gonna run off, But now to this day, he wears the bandana. Now he takes the bandana off, and he doesn't care. But they've always been great. I mean, they're. I feel regions always need characters, and those two are characters. and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean they're I was with them last night, as a matter of fact, at a RWA show, and people still clap for him. Alfredo's music hits, and he comes out full of energy, and he's the cheerleader. He's the guy that he'll get him going. He'll do whatever and make a smile on a kid's face, and always the same way. So kudos to them.
And another star early on of NEWA was Bronco Jesse James. He would go on to become Marcus O. Middleton in Mayhem Independent Wrestling. Mark Basil, his real name. He also passed away, unfortunately. What are your memories of him over the years?
Uh, Mark, I think I remember Mark the most is like Mark was not somebody that was when you see him, you didn't say he was a wrestler. Um, I never looked at him as a wrestler. Like, it could be wrong to say that. I never looked at him as a wrestler. I looked at him more as a character. Um, he wanted to be part of it in any way. He always had ideas. He always had something he wanted to be part of. But I think the Marcus Middleton part was fun for him because he got to be like that Freddie Blassie, that Grand Wizard, that type of Lou Albano type, which is what I think he wanted to do more. I think he really wanted to be the wrestler, and I think in time he realized he wasn't the wrestler, the physical wrestler. Um, but he was able to morph them together a little bit. If I had to put a thing on it, kind of like the Bobby the Brain Heenan, when Heenan was doing the thing, and sometimes he get wrapped up in the wrestling part and that aspect of it. That's how I always pictured him as that character where you can get him in and he would get a crowd reaction. He would definitely get a crowd reaction. So he was always a great part of any event.
And you mentioned a rocky relationship for a while there with gorgeous Gino Giovanni. Why don't you give us a history of you and Gino?
So me and Gino, we never had a rocky relationship. It was more me not being smart to the business and seeing what he was doing on TV. Wasn't formally trained. He was just, NWA. Just he was just that arrogant, and I just wanted to beat the crap out of him. And and then once I got to know him and meet him and get familiar with him, I'm like, he's actually a really good kid. I mean, we had spent time together at home. He'd come to the house for dinner. We grown to really um, adopt him as almost kind of one of our kids. Like he's been in my house. He's played with my son when he was first born. So Gino was always a fun cat, but he was protected a lot in the beginning. Because I think he was that much hated that people couldn't distinguish the two.
Yeah,
So he was very protected by a lot of guys, by a lot of people. To the point was people would want to try to kill him at shows. Like they were like, oh, gotta get him like a superstar, gotta get him out of the building because he's gonna
right.
cause a. So having the opportunity to work, I think I worked with Gino maybe a handful of times over the years. Nothing like crazy as maybe like mixed tags or something like that. But anytime I got in there with him, he was just always easy and always just like, sure, what do you need me to do? But when you flip that switch and had him, he comes to that curtain. He was an entirely different person. He was him. Period. He was
Yeah.
him. Period. And he was a lot of fun. He would be a lot of fun. I haven't seen him in years. But he was a lot of fun.
And another guy to start with the NEWA was Matt West. Of course, wrestled as Kid Liberty. Would go on to become one half of Sick and Twisted, one half of the War Dogs or Dogs of War with Kyle Storm, Sick and Twisted with Prince Ivan Zangveen, and then of course one half of the Damned as well with Draven. What are your memories of Matt Storm over the years?
Matt Stone was always he was one of the guys that was there when I first started. So um, I was able to learn a lot. Again, we weren't really. And I could be wrong saying this. We weren't really formally trained. I think we were all on the same level, though they were wrestling at that there with them a little longer than I was. Um, but we all kind of found our way into independent wrestling, all roughly around the same time. We all kind of spread our wings in the same area. We all went to Champs Arena. We all went to to Yankee Pro. We all at some point went to the Rumbles. So we all kind of had that same path. that they have, and everybody's aspirations are a little more than others. They had their visions in certain areas where I had mine in certain areas. Anthony had his in certain areas. So um, they all kind of went their way and did what they had to do in life, where they ended up creating PWF was created through with them, which I had a small thing. I was able to have a little time with them involved in that. Um, but it was always a fun time. We always had a fun time when we're doing this. As long, I guess the thought process is, if we were all wrestling and making money and making smiles or making tears, we were doing our job.
Yeah.
So that's how kind of we all went from there.
You mentioned Club Stars, Johnston, Rhode Island. Of course, PCW, Primal Conflict, would go on to run many shows there. Jamie Payne, of course, the big incident. Jamie Payne is in action. His hair catches fire, middle of the match. They can't get him out. Bring us back to that night. Tell us all about that.
To go to that night, I have to bring you back to Jamie Payne and Nemesis. Jamie Payne and Nemesis are two individuals that came to myself and Stallion via Gino Martino. So again, we were back 2000s, 2001s in that era, 99. There was no hardcore really being done, like straight hardcore promotions. We were the only ones doing it. These two individuals were super into the hardcore death matches. That's all they wanted to do. Um, Neither one were formally trained. They weren't wrestlers. They were just two big guys that loved wrestling, had a general idea, um, worked with Gino behind the scenes. So they came to us and they were like, we want to do a best of 7 death match, like tournament or tour or whatever. And I remember, and I believe this was at Club Stars. I'm sorry, not Club Stars. This was at the Wonderland Ballroom. And I remember having a conversation with him. I'm going, you want to do a best of what? Because I want to do a best of 7, death match. We'll do this. And I'm like, best of 7. So give me the first match. So, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And, all right. We're doing the second match. We'll do this, this, and this. I said, so I'm assuming the third match is going to include Dynamite. Because there's nothing else for you to do. Unless you plan to bring a bus and an aircraft carrier into the building, there's nothing left for you guys to do. And they both had this look on their faces like, what do you mean? I said, you're trying to do 7 matches of trying to kill each other, and you gave everything in the first match and a half. There's nothing left. I can't make money on that. I can't make money on that.
Right.
If you want to do best of 3, let's roll with the best of 3. I mean, it might have been best of 5. I think it started with best of 3. So that's what we did. And we progressively just kind of cut off a lot of stuff they wanted to do and gave them something either time. That turned into Club Stars, where their idea was like, we're gonna do the big flaming table spot where, Nemesis will choke slam Payne through this flaming table on the floor from the apron. I'm like, sure. What could it hurt? We were already at the point where we were just throwing the book out the window anyway, so screw it. We all thought we knew what we were doing. So what happens is, the night comes, we're gonna do the spot. They douse the table like it's been done before. Douse the table with lighter fluid. They light the table. Well, where the one step they forgot was, when you light the table, you have to wait for the table to actually fully light. They lit the table and jumped the gun, and Jamie takes the choke slam from Nemesis onto the table before half of the liquid is even ignited yet. He goes through the table folds in half like an accordion, like a book, how you expect it, and all the unlit fuel gets splashed to the other side. Now he's got sandwiched between his table, and it all goes in his hair and lights his hair on fire. Crowd is going, holy shit, they're all into it. And on the video, it's kind of creepy because it's like you hear the chant. He's like, "Holy," and then it slowly starts going down until one person you hear off the side go, "Holy shit, he's on fire!" And he's literally on fire. And we're trying to put him out. A lot of people don't realize we actually had a fire extinguisher ready for this in case this incident would happen. When they pulled the pin broke inside the fire extinguisher. So if you ever watch the video, you see the guys throwing towels on him. You see Dave Padula jumping on him, trying to put him out. That's because the fire extinguisher pin broke.
Wow.
So we're putting him out. People are like, let's go, what's going on? You hear Jamie Payne screaming in pain, freaking out. Jamie Payne, all he is saying this whole time is saying, please tell me you have this on video. I just need to know it's on video. If not, none of this is worth it. We recorded the whole thing right up until we get to the ambulance. And he's like, that's all I care about. He didn't care. He got like third-degree burns, I think, on the back of his neck or something like that. Part of his hair was singed off. Um, I think Tommy Dreamer was on that show, and Tommy was like, "Yeah, that was extreme." It was just, it was a crazy, which could have been a very unfortunate incident, um, but it turned into kind of an infamous, which probably at this time probably could have went viral. But it was one of those things. There was like, did you hear about the guy? There was like on the cheat sheets, the New England Independent, New England Informer. That made like long threads about this whole thing, about that happening. What was it, the NEI? Was it?
Yes. Yeah.
That made like long threads about that. It was a crazy situation that had that could have got worse. Luckily, it didn't. I remember the people that ran Stars came in. It's like, is he all right? Yeah, nothing burned, right? Nope. All right. They walk back out the building like nothing. He goes, just make sure the check doesn't bounce.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It was a weird time, but it was a memorable situation. Like I said, Jamie Payne, they were nuts. They were two nutty individuals. You would never know that. Believe now, I think Jamie Payne's like a lawyer now.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy time for them. We used to do some crazy stuff, but it culminated when we went to um, Westerly, Mass, at the American Civic Center, where we had our biggest event, and it drew about 600 and change. We had like Tommy Dreamer, New Jack, Balls Mahoney, Bilvis Wesley. We had all those guys, and same type of craziness.
Yeah.
And this is at a time where there really wasn't internet. We drew strictly on our popularity and our fans. Our fans were going up there on their own, making their own copy of the flyers and flyering the whole area for us. We had our own street team that we didn't have to pay for. They went and did it on their own. Went to all the venues, all the stores and everything. Just passed it out everywhere. And a lot of people don't realize too is that through Primal Conflict, we gave guys like, because nobody was booking guys like this yet up in our area. We gave guys like Amazing Red, Brian Excel, the SATs. We had brought all those guys up originally. We brought it was a Honda Civic with like 7 Spanish dudes in it. And they would get there and they'd be sleeping in the car for hours, because they were up there early. So we were able to introduce New England to those type of individuals that were starting to get their run. And like Amazing Red was like our Rey Mysterio. You know what I'm saying? It was like that type of feel, where they were doing their stuff down in the tri-states. They were just on to branch out. We were lucky enough to have the opportunity to bring them up here exclusively with us. So it was a fun time with that. Primal's a fun time that I hold very close to me. I had a lot of fun with Primal.
Yeah, me as well. I was there for quite a while as a ring announcer, and my debut was actually at the show with Brian XL, the SAT, and Amazing Red. I believe it was Woburn, Mass, at an indoor soccer arena or something.
Yep.
That was my very first show. Mike Messier was the ring announcer previous to me, and so he was there to open up the show and kind of introduce things, and then he introduced me, and the crowd was chanting, "Who the F are you?" Because that was my first appearance there. But a good memory. Went on to do that Americal Civic Center show and many shows for PCW. So definitely a good time in wrestling. So
PCW was a
2008.
good time.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I said PCW was a good time for me. It was fun.
Yeah, it really was. 2008, you were inducted in the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Obviously, small beginnings there in the form of the ceremony, went on to become its own event. What are your memories of New England Pro Wrestling experience over the years?
If I have to be honest with you, and please do not take this the wrong way.
Yeah,
When it was first brought up that this was going down, and refresh my memory, was I in the first class or second class?
you were in the first 2008.
Right. Yeah, I always forget that. I remember when it was brought that it was kind of like a few people had the kind of the same feeling at first. It was like,
Yeah,
is this real? Like, is this really needed? Like, it was like it almost felt, and I've never told you this. It almost felt like, all right, maybe it's just part of the show, and we were all kind of like, all right, well, I mean, it's cool. It's cool to be acknowledged, and to this day, I appreciate the acknowledgement. I don't think I mentioned earlier about aspirations. I don't think really nobody knew how far you wanted to take it. So to be to be able to get it, and then to go, okay, we got it, but is there going to be like one next year? Like, did it mean? I don't know if I'm saying it right. Did it mean as much as it should mean
sure.
at first? And then when we found out there was another one, and then there was another one, and there was another one, I said, okay. Then it clicked. As okay, I feel the. It made me feel better knowing that it wasn't like a one and done, because I
Right.
knew there was a lot of individuals that deserve to have the opportunity to have the same, to have that given to them, and to be in the first class and get it, and not knowing it was just like, oh, it's just oh, this kid just wants to just do a Hall of Fame. Hey, he's a Hall of Fame, because it's so easy nowadays. It's so easy for people just to want to just here's this, and what does it really mean? Um, but yeah, I appreciate the fact that I was given the opportunity to get that, to be given that, like I said, and to see where it went on, um, many years later. It was great to see. I mean, what you was able to pull off in that amount of time, from the small beginnings to the grander stage that you had made for yourself. It was huge. It became a point where the boys were really looking forward to the time of getting together. At the Crown Plaza or whatever, and seeing each other and having those opportunities to reminisce where you don't. And it kind of gave us in the New England aspect that feel of, wow, this is how it must feel for like the WWE Hall of Famers to have their moment. They get
Yeah.
to sit down and see guys they haven't seen in a while and stuff like that. Like I remember when you did it in East Providence and you had the Power Company come in. I hadn't seen them in a few years at that point, so it was great to be able to see them,
Yeah.
for that, see the twins. So it was cool. It was a cool time to actually see how it morphed, and how, not only that, but how everybody treated you with so much respect, for that. So it was definitely an honor to be able to get it. But in the beginning, it was just kind of like, really need to do this?
Yeah, it's one of those
Yeah,
things. It's hard to get off the ground. You don't know how it's going
yeah,
to be perceived. And like you said, there were several people that were, okay, but I didn't give up, and it was something that I thought was important for the New England scene,
yeah.
and I
No,
think it's important to recognize everybody. So
yeah, no. And those who have now they do appreciate it. I'm actually looking at myself on the screen, and from this distance, I kind of look like Bill Goldberg. It's weird. I just happen to know. I'm like, wow, just not as jacked. Anyway,
right.
but yeah, no, it was cool, man. To see how it turned out and where it's going from now and what you've done with it, and obviously you've moved on to other things with it. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely cool. Highlight for
So
me had to been when I had the opportunity to induct Ariel. 'Cause I've known Ariel for so long and whatever. So um, that was a highlight for her to ask me to be part of that. Was something I always will remember. So that was a fun time for me.
yeah, yeah, definitely well deserved, and another one who put in so much time here in the New England scene, and still doing it today.
Mhm. Yep, she just won the Omni title at the RWA last night. Brand
Awesome.
new title. They just announced this new title, and she won it last night.
So let's turn the page here. Top three matches, in your opinion. Top three matches that you've been a part. number one. And then the flip side of that, top 3 matches in pro wrestling as your inner fan, from television or wherever it may be.
All right, which way you want to start with first?
Let's start with television.
Top 3.
Top 3, any era, any promotion.
So again, I'm bad with memory, but I'll definitely give you the individuals in it. The number one for me by far all time favorite, WrestleMania 3, Ricky Steamboat, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah.
What it is, I don't know what it is. It's just to this day, I still tell young guys or young gals that are starting out when I'm working with them, go watch this match. It's just something about this match. It's not about trying to be fast. It's not trying to be slow. It's the whole package of that match that I try to show, where it's like when it's time to be fast, when it's time to be slow, when it's time to pick up the energy, lower the energy. This just the roller coaster of the match, is how I put it, always sticks out to me the most, because it was just that. To me, it's just I I think for any real wrestling fan, it's one of the top 5 for almost anybody. So that was definitely my number 1 match. Number 2 is Ric Flair Sting, any match. Ric Flair Sting, Ric Flair Horseman, Sting Road Warriors, anything in that circle of group of people is always in my top 5. Ric Flair, the consummate professional wrestler that he is, he was always just above and beyond. And Sting being the quintessential baby face, um, those two were those two you can't almost make a better pair. They complemented each other throughout the years. It's just they no matter what match it was, they were always reinventing themselves. There was
Yeah.
always something. It was never boring. There was always something, and that's lost in today's wrestling. Is that type of, whether you want to call it chemistry or just storytelling, that's lost. Um, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit would be the other two. Anything those guys are doing. Again, I'm real vague on matches because there's just so many matches, they all morph together. But those two, and I'm referring to those two not only in there but also when their stuff in Japan. Um, their stuff in Japan was something that was just different. Chris Benoit was, for me, the best all around professional wrestler at the time you can get. He can mix up any style. He can take you in the air, he can take you on the ground, he can take you to the street. He can do anything. And when you mixed him with Eddie Guerrero and what Eddie can do, and this is before Eddie got to the big time and started being more charismatic and in the lie, the cheat, the steal thing. I mean, to see him be able to pull that type of stuff off earlier on, it would have been crazy to even see. Um, so it was great to see that aspect of him being such a technical and it becoming such a technical entertainer. So those guys right there. I mean, but there's a lot. Gentleman Chris Adams, Iceman, Pit Parsons is another one from the old global time. Um, the Von Erichs, uh, all those type of things. I can't. I'd have to mention the Freebirds. Any of the Freebirds were in, Gilbert and those guys. They were innovators.
Yeah.
So there's no one particular match, because you could say there were great matches and there were bad matches, but I tend to look at them all as the matches, as in what can I learn from them. So that's why for me they kind of all get morphed together in a way. So any of those athletes were able to pull off was what made me turn that TV on at that time to watch. It was just that. It was just that. I think that's what excited me about wrestling.
Yeah.
Is I got so immersed in what they were telling me that I bought it.
Right.
It was just that much. And
And
then
then on the flip side, your favorite personal matches. It doesn't have to be a particular match if you can't remember a date, but maybe a favorite opponent to work with.
um, one match that sticks out to me would have been an opportunity that was given to me by the late Tony Rumble. Would have been myself in getting the opportunity to work at that time. My first, I guess you'd call them now indie darlings. Um, they weren't really indie darlings back then, but I had the opportunity to work with Devin Storm, uh, which people know now as Crowbar. Um, uh, he was at the time, doing enhancement work all the time, whatever the case may be. So I was given the opportunity as the El Diablo to work with him in a match where I was just like I'm working a star. This is great. I'm getting up to work a star. And was it a 5-star match? No, by all means, no. But what I remember the most about that was Tony Rumble coming to me. He's like, Jose, that was a good match. He goes, and Tony was a very straight shooter. It was a good match. He goes, you need to work on this, this, and this. And he goes, if an opportunity comes up again, I'm gonna book this. I want to book this match again and see where it goes on the next one. And Storm was the same way. He's like, hey, man, it was good. It was a good job tonight, kid. He goes, work on this and work on this. He goes, but you definitely have something. You know what I'm saying? I definitely want to work with you again.
Nice.
So to leave that night, having been given praise and I think more important, not just praise, but some, some criticism and some information on what I could do next um, was a big change for me because a lot of times you don't see that nowadays. You don't get to see that. A lot of guys like, hey, good job, pat in the back, see you next week. That was it. Um, but yeah, that's definitely one of the first matches that I would sit back and really think about. Would be the number one match for me. Another one for me that's memorable only because I'll leave that one for last. Another one would be anything me and Brickhouse Baker. Anything me and Brickhouse Baker do. I'm a firm believer that in this business you'll always have your not necessarily your polar opposite, but your contrast, your yin to your yang.
Right.
Brickhouse Baker was that guy, and I hated him when I first met him. I did not like Brickhouse by far. I just said this in another podcast. I don't know. When I first met Brickhouse, I could not stand him. I thought he was the most arrogant piece of something I've ever met. I thought he thought he was above himself and everything else. And once I realized that that wasn't the case, it was more of he had the same passion and drive that made it come off that way. Um, I've gotten to know Brickhouse over the years, and he's a brother. He's like a brother to me. He's somebody that to this day, if I just wanted to call him up and say, "Hey, let's shoot the shit," just like we haven't talked to each other in forever, and but yet we would talk to each other every day for 6 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's Brickhouse. Anything me and Brickhouse did was for me. For me, it was something special. Um, and that's from just doing wrestling matches to me introducing him to a little bit of the hardcore aspect because he never really did like barbed wire and stuff like that until I brought him into it, and he was like, "Let's go, let's do it," because we had that faith in each other.
Yeah.
And the whole time we wrestled, we technically hurt each other. I remember, I remember hitting him with a wild chair that just happened, and splitting him open at the PAL, and it was the first time that I actually hurt somebody in the ring and I didn't know how to handle it. I had a complete breakdown regarding it. He had got rushed to the hospital. I split him open nice. Um, and he showed back up like 30, 40 minutes later. And I was like, like sobbing at him. And he's like, slapped me around. I was like, stop it. We still got to go upstairs and finish something. We got to finish. We got another spot. We got to finish up. So wipe your eyes. Let's go. We're going to go. Like nothing happened. And he was like, and then later on he grabs me. He's like, listen to me. He goes, did you mean hit me with the chair? He goes, no, it happened. He goes, exactly. Shit happened. Get over it. Let's go. And I
Wow.
was like, oh, okay. So it was just like we had that. We knew we weren't trying to hurt each other. Back to you, for example, when I said earlier, I got a dent in my head. It was at the hands of Brickhouse Baker.
Yeah.
He was supposed to, it was supposed to be like The lights go out. He hits the ring. He hits the apron 2 3 times. So, it makes it sound like he hit me with a chair, and I'm laid out. Well, unbeknownst to him, he swung the chair in the dark and hit me square in the head. Split me wide open to the point there was this blood flying out of my head. Did I have a fit about it? No, I'm just glad it didn't catch me in the eye. Shit happens. We were backstage. We was just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Things happen. In business, things happen. So Brickhouse is definitely the guy that anything me and him did was for us magic. We had just a blast. I introduced him to the barbed wire. I got introduced into my very first cage match with him that I ever had through Top Rope, through Yankee at the time. So it was like we had some of our firsts together. The other memorable one for me would have to be Rick Fuller. I had a lot of fun later in my life with other matches, stuff like that. But Fuller for me was a fun one only because how it happened. So Fuller was another individual at the cusp of becoming somebody in the business. He was doing some enhancement work, things of that nature. At the time, he was doing Lumberjack Rick Fuller. We were in Uxbridge, Mass. I get to the venue. I remember it was a big gymnasium, big show. I get in the back, and at the time at Yankee, the booker in the back was a gentleman named Tony Maniac. As soon as I get there, it's like I'm doing my normal handshakes and highs to everybody. As soon as I get there, he's like, "Jose, I need to talk to you." And he like pulls me off into like a secluded area in the back of the corner of the building. Like, what's up? He's like, "Listen, I need you to do me a favor." I was like, "What's up?" I need you. And I apologize, keep scratching. I have dogs in the house. And this room is filled with hair. He goes, I need to talk to him. I'm like, what's up? He's like, you're not in trouble. Just so you know, you're not in trouble. All right. And I was doing Del Diablo at the time. I'm like, all right. So I need you to work Ricky tonight. I said, I need you to work Rick Fuller tonight. I said, but you're not in trouble. Just so you know, you're not in any kind of trouble. So the ongoing joke was like, if you had any kind of heat, they put you in there with Ricky. You're not in trouble. And I'm like, you sure? Because you keep saying I'm not in any kind of trouble. Now I feel like I'm in trouble. He goes, no, his guy can't make it, so we need somebody to fill in for him. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'll work with him, no big deal. So you sure? We'll try to find somebody else. We need somebody who's going to, make him look good and stuff like that. I'm your guy. Don't worry about it. We're good. I'm fine. No problem. Go to Ricky. I'm like, hey, Ricky, you and me tonight? He's like, oh, I was like, all right, good. You and me? He goes, I said, what do you need from me? Whatever you want to do, we're good. He's like, all right, I'm going to do this, and this. Here's the finish. Go. Sweet. See you out there. Match get ready to start. Touch base with him last time. I get down the ring. Boom, all 9 yards. Doing the match. And I don't know if I had a mental breakdown. Rick Fuller was the man known for the stiffest and loudest chops in the area. Everybody knows this. I remember Rick's in the ring. We're going through the match. He whips me off for a clothesline. I duck the clothesline. He turns around and I rip. He had a lumberjack shirt on. And I ripped the shirt on, and with all my might, and you remember Ricky. Ricky's like, 7 feet tall. I cocked back and I gave him the most hellacious chop that I think I've ever thrown. I think he's ever felt. And not to brag. But I hit him with all my might. And the second I hit him, he takes it, he sells it back. But it's, in my mind, this took a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because I could see him, and I could see myself leave my body. And watch this. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, what did I just do? So, to know Rick Fuller was a guy where once he was ready to go home, he always had this set thing. He would grab you, he would throw you in the corner, he would light you up with 2 or 3 chops, he would sell out, hit you with something, and here comes a big power bomb. Boom, 1, 2, 3. That was the setup. I keel back and hit him. Bomb as hard as I can. To the point I could see Tony Maniac in the gorilla position go, Oh my God, Rick's gonna kill him. What did he do? Rick gets me in the corner, throws my hands up on the ropes, sets me up, gives me one big, huge chop. Blow! Super loud, which I expected. Now I'm expecting I sell it down, bring head up, and I expect that here comes the rest of them. I said, let's bring it on, let's go. He gets it up, looks on the crowd, he gives me a big forearm. So yeah, brother, let's take it home. He gives me the power bomb, all done. So I didn't. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I did something wrong. So he gave me one, he gives me that, and that was it. Match is over. 1, 2, 3. I get crawled, and I had somebody come out, crawl me, wheel me to the back. Tony's like, "What did you do? What was you thinking?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Why would you chop him like that? What was you?" I don't know. It just happened. He's like, "Oh my God, he's gonna be so upset." I'm like, "Oh, fuck, this is great." So I'm waiting. He's taking a few minutes. He's doing, high fiving, doing his thing. He gets in the back, comes through the curtain, sees Tony Maniac. Tony's like, "Rick, are you?" Pushes Tony Maniac, comes up to me, puts his hand out. He's like, "Jose," shakes my hand. He goes, "Thank you." And I'm like, "For," he goes, "Nobody ever has the balls to just hit me." And I get it, but this is the nature of the game. You need to exert yourself. And I'm happy to say that you actually were the first guy to actually grew the balls to just shoot something like that on me, just to do it. He goes, "I'm sorry I gave you the big overhand." He goes, "But and he's like, "There's no sorry needed at all, by all means." He goes, "I was ready for it. It is what it is." And we went off to the back and started talking. And Tony's like, hey, and Joe Eugenia comes over. He's like, "You okay? You good? Is he mad?" He goes, "No, we're great as hell. This is no problem at all." So it was a funny story for me because it was like Rick at the time was put on a huge pedestal, rightfully so. He was a big guy. He was doing something. He was becoming a thing. He was on the radar. And to be given the opportunity to have a match with him is an opportunity in itself. But to get in the back and it wasn't no crazy match. It was just it was nothing crazy. It was 4, 5, 6 minutes. Nothing crazy. Nothing right home about. But the standpoint of what happened in it is what resonates for me because it was like we didn't have to do a lot. We gave him what we wanted. He goes, "You got that over," and that was it. And he was like, "I super appreciate it." And then we had go on a few times to fight each other, a couple of times, and it was always stiff. And he got to the point where he's like he enjoyed working with me because he knew that if he gave it to me, I was going to give it right back.
Yeah.
And there's only a few individuals that was like that with him. But for me to give him the chop, knowing that was like his signature, it was almost like when he started winding down, it was almost like he passed the torch to me because for the longest time I had that monarchy of Jose's in the match, Jose's got these chops. Here's the deal, and then it became a joke where it's like, "You gotta wrestle Jose, you gotta chop him first. Show me your man, you gotta chop him first." So that was like the ongoing joke later on in my career. So to have that, having what happened with Rick, for me is one of my best memories in wrestling.
You would go on to become one half of the Los Bandidos alongside Pretty Boy Hernandez in Yankee Pro Wrestling. What are your memories
Pretty
working
boy,
with Pretty Boy?
pretty boy, that's my boy. We are the closest friends to this day. I was just talking to him the other day, as a matter of fact. He lives like 5 minutes from my house. Um, Pretty Boy was short lived. He didn't really wrestle for that long. Um, Again, Pretty Boy is somebody that I brought in alongside Brickhouse Baker. It was with Brickhouse Baker that we introduced him, along with Tex McCoy. It was at an event where we were at the PAL. Pretty Boy was just was sitting in the audience. He was a plant in the audience. Funny thing is, back then, they used to have real police officers at those shows. Um, so we had did a thing where me and Brickhouse went out and fought into the audience. We ended up like falling on Pretty Boy. His name is John. We ended up falling on John, and it's like his popcorn went flying. And then we worked our way back into the ring, and some stuff was happening. And Pretty Boy jumps the ring, jumps the rail, and runs up in the ring. And security and police all jump on him, thinking he's just some crazy fan. And meanwhile, nobody told them that he was doing this, which was the best part. Nobody told them this was happening. So he gets in a ring. He's got like house security on him, and plus he's got like the legit full police trying to hold him down. And he's in the corner of the screen. He's like, "Hey, I'm part of the show. You guys let me go." He's like, I gotta get. Then they won't let him go. They had him like a little all choked up trying to drag him out until finally somebody had to get over. It's like, oh, no, just release him, let him just go. So that's how we brought him in. But being able to have John come in and work with me was great. You know, it was um, for me it was good chemistry because what he didn't have in the wrestling he had in the strength. Though I was taller than him and he was shorter than me, we had that. It was work because he was almost like he was almost like a Taz type. You know what I'm saying? Where he had no problem being that fighter and being that strong guy. So we were able to have fun with. I could do the wrestling stuff and he could be the brawn. You know, he could be the strong man.
Yeah.
You know, so I had fun. Me and John had a lot of fun with that chemistry. We talk about that every once in a while.
How about memories of early on of the Punisher Don Vega and his father Julio, who was always there to support his son at all the shows? Any memories of Julio as well?
Julio, man, Julio was man. He was the dad, the father to not only him but to a lot of us. He was greatly missed, man. He was he was an inspiration. I wish a lot of dads were like him. He was always there for him. And one night he traveled to all the shows. He was always there. Always made sure the boys needed water. Hell, let me get you. Especially when it came to like myself and Anthony and stuff like that in the early days of Pun, where he was just starting out. He was always with guys like us. Um, so it was great to be able to see him grow from when he started um, to where he is today. He's got the opportunity to do a lot of stuff like behind the scenes stuff with WB and stuff like that. He's now assisting coaching over at Showcase um, with their group and whatnot. He's doing a lot of good stuff over there. So to see where he was when he started, and he was kind of timid when he first started. To see him where he is today, it's great to see. It really is. It's great to see, and I'm sure his father will be proud.
And a show that I ring announced that you ran, Billerica, Massachusetts, rewinding a bit. This was probably 2000, 2001. It was P3 Pro, I believe is what you called the promotion. Balls Mahoney, Johnny Curtis, Chris Harvard, Chris Nowinski was on the show.
So I
Any
don't think that
memories of that?
was. I think that was in Somerville, wasn't it?
I don't know. I thought it was Billerica. I could be wrong.
I could have. See, now you made me. I gotta think about that. I could have swore that was in Somerville because I was just talking. The reason why I bring that up because I was just talking about this particular show a couple of weeks ago. But maybe I don't know. It's up. It was regardless. It was up that way. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go on.
Well, I had it written down as Billerica on my original index card from announcing that show.
Oh, then maybe
Um,
we'll go over that. Maybe I'm wrong.
yeah,
Okay.
but just memories of putting that show together because obviously you were always on the shows. You weren't always putting together shows, so you were a big part of that. So
Well, the fact that I had Primal going on with that, I think we just finished up Primal, but it was fun. I think every wrestler at some point wants to put on a show. Whether it's ego or whether it's like maybe I could do something better than the other guy. Everybody at some point wants to put on a show. Um, so that was my niche of pulling on a show. I had gotten friendly with Balls, and that sounds weird. Um, it really sounded weird. Please edit that out. No, just leave it in. I got friendly with him, and he was like, "Jose, yeah, sure, like, I'm more than happy to come down or whatever." And it was a fun time. Like I said, it was just something. It was just something different that I wanted to try, and again, not being fully smart to the business. I guess a lot of it is ego driven. I can do it my way better than your way. So I think that happens a lot. Um, but for what it was an experience that I know that I needed to get out, and I learned a lot from it. That I've used now to the point where it's like there are things I shouldn't do and things I try to do now when I help put shows together or a book or things like that. Um, I always tend to analyze anything I do, and what I to this day I still try to figure out what I could have done better, and what I learned from it. What I like, how did I talk to this talent the right and wrong way? What did I give them the right and wrong way? Um, I learned from those experiences.
and as you started to wind down your in ring career, you would go one on one with Just Incredible. What are your memories of that? encounter in Connecticut?
Just incredible. I've known Justin for a few years. Um, just incredible with me. It was just an easy. It's just an easy transition because I think me and him are kind of alike in some aspects. So it's just an easy fit. At that time, I was a lot more comfortable with myself. So I didn't. It, I think at that point the ego might have been already gone. It was already. It was just like now I knew who I was and how I could wrestle and what I needed to do to wrestle with somebody. And it clearly must have been working because I was getting booked constantly. So it must have been working correctly. But it was just simple. I don't think it was oh my god memorable for me or Mitch others, but it was a good opportunity to get into a match with somebody of his caliber. Um, I think he's got a lot to offer, and I really wish he. I hope he hears this. I really wish that he would realize that he has a lot to offer still in some fashions, and that he could reinvest himself into that. Without getting into details, I hope he hears that. I think he's a talent that has been thrown away now, and I think he's somebody that still has something to offer.
Yeah. And MXW, you were part of that for promotion for a while. You would go one-on-one with Ron Zombie. Your memories of that?
Ron Zombie, this the Z again. Z. Ronnie is somebody that I've known for years. I've known through the Connecticut scene. He's one of my brothers, man. I was just with him a couple weeks ago. He's one of my guys. It's just he's not a technical wrestler. He's a fighter. Um, we try to mix up as best we could, and we would just get what we had to get done. We knew our job on the show. We knew our placement on the show. We knew what we had to do, and that's what we did. And we shook hands at the end of the night, and that was the end of it. we just Ron is another one of those guys. It was just easy to work. I could show up at the building 5 minutes before my match and just look at Ron. It's like, hey, we're gonna do what we did 2 weeks ago. Yeah, okay, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? Not have a care in the world. Just go out there, do our shtick, and that was it. So he was just always. He's another one like that, like a Brickhouse Baker, where I could just literally show up at a show and be told, "Hey, it's you and Brickhouse, and oh, you guys are on next. All right, let me just put my boots on real quick." And I just look at him and like, uh, number 15, sure, okay, let's go. You know,
Yep.
and just click and just have it, and then watch guys that are on like before us or after us go. You guys didn't go over nothing? No. Why do we need to go over anything? Like, if you're comfortable knowing somebody and knowing what your ability is, you should be able to go out there and put on a show and put on a match with no problem at all.
Yeah.
So that part is kind of lost on people. So guys like them, I was able to just have my fun with. They weren't. I didn't consider those a payday match or a match where it's like, oh, I gotta go here and wrestle this guy, because I gotta do this. It was like, yeah, this is fun. Let's go. I can just chit chat and be myself. I don't have to worry
Yep.
about it.
And early on, you would form a bond and obviously become very close friends with both Devon Dudley and the late New Jack over the years. Why don't you tell us about your relationships with the two of those individuals?
Ooh. So, like we said off camera, like we talked about off camera recently. Um, a lot of people don't realize I met both those gentlemen um, through the infamous mass transit incident that happened in New England. It involved New Jack and ECW, and an individual by the name of Eric Kulash, which was on the name of mass transit. Was a young man that was a wrestler or an aspiring wrestler um, that was involved in an incident that just went further than it needed to go. There was lawsuits involved of that nature where I was brought in as a character witness for the defense in behalf of Jack against Kulash, being that I had known Kulash through the NWA and as somebody that helped train him. Um, we had met through them. Um, so part of the story with Jack was we had went to lunch. He invited me to lunch during break at the trial on day 2. And he was kind of like, hey, listen, I appreciate you helping me out. It's a big deal. It shouldn't be like this. I'm like, let's get something straight. So a lot of people that don't know the real Jerome and New Jack. A lot of people are very intimidated. He's a very intimidating person um, until you know him. Jack was very, very like broad shouldered, and he's like oh he was just one of those guys. So when he has told me, he was like, listen, I appreciate you coming out and helping me and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, I don't want you to get this confused. I'm not out here helping you for anything. What you did was foul. What you did is wrong. Period. It was wrong. You know it. It went too far. I said, why I'm here is helping guys like myself and guys that I know that are trying to get to that next level. And this situation is stopping it. This situation is causing guys like myself an opportunity to get to another level. And it's going to hurt people for a long, long time. I said, because what he's saying and doing on that stand right now are lies. He's just flat out lying. He had mentioned how he didn't know anything about ECW. He wasn't familiar with the characters or anything about it. Where literally days before the incident happened, he was watching. We used to have an office in NWA in Cranston, and he would be in there all day long just watching ECW videos. That's all he did. That and a pile of chicken wings. That's all he did. So for him to sit there and lie that he didn't know New Jack and these guys, it was all lies. So all the stuff he was doing was creating an environment for guys like myself that were trying to make the next step fail because they closed the doors for a lot of guys. So I made it a very big point of telling him that. He was taken aback like he couldn't believe somebody was talking to him that way. And I'm like, I'm not here to be your friend. It's just a flat out truth. I got called to do this. I'm not going to defend him. I'm not defending you. I'm just going to tell her how I see it. And that's how I told him. And then it just turned in. Diva, on the other hand, was entitled. Diva was very soft-spoken. It was cool about it. At first, we were treated like, I was looked at as a mark, without just an indie guy, and I knew that going in there. At some point, it changed. With them, with Tommy, it kind of changed when they realized I wasn't just being here, that I really had a passion for it, and I really felt that this was something that. So let me back up a little bit. I technically would have been the one in that spot. Originally, it was either Dave Padula was supposed to drive him up there, drive the Tiny and his brother up. They couldn't make it. I was supposed to go, and I couldn't make it. I couldn't get out of work. So then Eric was one that ended up taking him with his dad. So if I would have had the opportunity, it would probably have been me, and then none of that would have happened. And then you would have been interviewing, an ECW guy or something else later. So who knows? But it went the way it went. We just end up clicking in a way, and also my wife is very she's a very friendly person, whereas she's easy to talk to, she's easy to get along with. She's very straightforward up front, and we weren't trying. We made it known right off the bat that we weren't just some fan being there because we got called to a trial and we're just fans about it. We set that precedence from the get go, and I think they understood it and appreciated the fact that we weren't there to see Devon Dudley and New Jack. We were there because of Jerome Young, and it just so happens that Devin Hughes was there. You know what I'm saying? So that's how that went, and how we became friends afterwards is kind of hazy. I think we were like, so with Jack, right after that happened, after the trial happened, everything else. You remember him hitting him up? I was like, hey man, because I know what you said to me. It is what it is, but I want to do a favor. So if you ever need a favor, let me know. It just so happens like, well then, if that's the case, I want to work with you. I want to do a match with you. And Yankee was able to put that together. We did that in Roseland, not the Roseland Ballroom. Yeah, Roseland Ballroom, and Taunton, I believe that is.
Taunt Mass. Yep.
Yeah, I don't even think that's there anymore. The Roseland Ballroom was me and Jack. So that he did me a favor to come out for that show, as kind of like, payback for helping him per se. And then after that we just became cool. We would talk all the time, and we became that friend. So it started as we became that friend that when he came to the area, he can call us and we would pick him up. And every wrestler has that group friend. We became that friend that where hey, I'm just getting into the airport. You want to pick me up? I'll get to the show tonight. We'll hang out. Became that friend, and then that friendship changed over the years. He would eventually end up like staying in my house. He would be cooking us dinner and whatnot. Um, I'd fly out to California with him for XPW. We just became that. We became friends like that, where it was a mutual respectful type of thing. With Devon, and then it was kind of the same. With Devon, it was the same thing. I think, like I said, the fact that we just turned into a situation where we didn't pull any punches with them. We were the same people as they were. They were just on a different level than we was. It just came close to the point where I think with Devon it was little. We became a lot more close with Devon than with Jack because Jack was very sporadic. Devon behind the scenes is very family oriented, and I think he's seen that with us, with our kids. So it became to the fact where we were just with him whenever TNA was just in town at the home. We were just with him, and this is 15, almost 20 years later, I believe, give or take. I mean, we've been to his house. I mean, to the point where when the Dudleys signed with WWE, we were one of the first five people that he called to say, "I made it." Like it was like obviously he called his mom, he called his people in his family, but of friends aspect for it, we were like in the top five, people that or group of people that called. We were like, "Why are you calling us?" He's like, "Well, you guys were there. We want, I want to share this." So we were there for a lot of those times with all this. So we were able to really bond a lot with him. With Jack, Jack was just a different type of bond. Jack was like that crazy uncle. He's like, I was like, I got to deal with Jack today. Like we would, we'd have promoters come in and be like, hey, can you come put a handle on Jack when he comes to town?
Yeah.
It was that type of thing. Like he'd tell promoters, like, hey, listen, I'm in town. I have such and such coming down with me. Those are gonna be my people that are gonna be with me, whatever. So it became a thing. And it was weird because the last time I seen Jack was January the year he passed. And it was a weird connection. We he came into town. I think he was in town for a signing. Made it a point to come see us. Give us a call. He was like, "Hey, get together. We're gonna meet up in Boston." He loved to go to the Oyster House in Boston. And we go to Boston. He's like, get whatever you want. He goes, it's on me, and which was weird because Jack was always about, yeah, I'll take it. I mean, listen, let me go to the bathroom. You pay the bill. You know what I'm saying? So he was paying for it, and we just had calm conversation. He was a different Jack. So in hindsight, I think when after me and my wife had talked about that, I think he knew something was coming. Like I think he knew his health was messed up. So in a small way, I think that was his part of saying goodbye. So a few months after that's when he passed. So it was a little weird. It was
Yeah.
a little weird, but I was happy that I had that moment, a little bit before that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I met them and all those crazy individuals from ECW was through that one infamous incident.
And we spoke about some of the bigger guys in Yankee Pro Wrestling. There were some bigger men in the NEWA, of course, as well. Any memories of the Party Man, Juan King, Judge Grable, the Headhunters, or Bulldozer?
Bulldozer was just cool. I never wrestled Bulldozer. Bulldozer was a cool guy, man. He was just a big guy. He was a big guy that kids like to see. Um, who else did you mention?
Judge Grable.
Judge Grape. Judge Grape. He was the black gentleman, right?
Yeah, he wasn't around very long.
Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a fan, and he just got brought again. Nobody was really trained. You know what I'm saying? It was just, but if I remember correctly, I think that was between him and Rock's idea to do the whole judge thing, and that's how they came about. And he'd come out, do a little strut. I never wrestled him, but it was fun. He was just a fun guy. He was just like, here comes the judge, and then he just worked into it. So he was great. Um, uh,
Then you had the
The
Headhunters.
Headhunters? Who was the Headhunters? Was that Anthony? No.
No, two other guys. I don't remember their individual names.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't remember the Headhunters.
That's all right.
Hey, I'm sorry. I don't. Because the only Headhunters I know of would have been two individuals that went on to like CZW, big guys, and then like their big thing was they were big guys that could do moonsaults.
Yep.
Was that them?
No, it's a different team, but I remember those having.
No, that's the only team. That's the only ones. That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking of them, but no, yeah, I don't remember them. I
Then you had the Party Man
did one of
One
them like
King.
did they have like shaggy hair?
Yeah, they did. It was long, kind of. Yeah,
Oh, I vaguely remember them. Vaguely, vaguely. Yeah, kind of. They were more like the Moondogs
yeah,
kind of.
pretty much. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. I vaguely remember them. I don't think I was really around for that. Like I remember, like I was thinking I was around, but I think I was already starting to do a lot more. So my attention span was a lot smaller
yeah.
because I was always doing so much more stuff. Yeah, I vaguely remember that. I can picture it now. So I think after that, the taller one, went on to do his own stuff by himself a little bit.
He did. Yeah, it was kind of at a singles run.
Yeah, yeah, I remember vaguely, vaguely, vaguely.
Yeah.
And what
Then
was the
of
other one?
course, Party Man One King.
Party Man One King. Party Man One King. I think I only worked with him once or twice doing like battle royals and stuff like that. But the dude, man, he was a firecracker. That dude was just a trip in the back. And another big guy. I don't know how Yankee had all these huge guys. They had to have at least 6 or 7 guys that were well over 6.5, almost 7 feet tall, if not taller. I don't know how. Or big.
Yeah.
Big
Right.
guys. Yeah, it was, but he was fun. He was the party guy. He got the party started, man. He would get the crowd going, and he was the epitome of less is more. He didn't know. He knew he didn't have to go out there and do all kind of crazy stuff. He had to do the bare basic, the bare stuff, be charismatic, and get out. That's all he had to do.
Yeah.
He understood where his place was on the show. He understood what he had to do to get it done. He was also one of the earlier guys in the Yankee aspect of it too. So I think he'd already been wrestling for a while at that point. But yeah, he was one of the cats that just knew what he had to do.
Right. Another big guy for Yankee Pro Wrestling that we didn't mention was Big Tim Towers.
Big Tim Towers was man, he had it. Like he had it. Like I remember he was, if I remember correctly, I think he was like on the verge of becoming an enhancement, or had just got some enhancement work or something like that. Um, and then he had gotten hurt, and then he just like disappeared. I think he just got out of the business altogether. But he was somebody that I thought was going to be one of the guys out of New England at that time. He had the look, he had the size, he had the ability. Could move for a guy his size.
Yeah.
Kind of like a, if I had to put a comparison, kind of like a Kane type. Like that type of agility and ability with a little more style. But yeah, no, he was somebody I was surprised it just vanished.
Yeah.
That was it. It just vanished.
And let's briefly talk about Mount Rushmore. You know, Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling. There's different ways that you could put it together, different ways you could look at it. What would you say is your Mount Rushmore of New England, both on the male side and the female side? Top 4 to come out of New England, any era.
Out of New England.
Yeah, specifically.
Okay. Out of New England. I'm going to go with the girls first. Mount Rushmore's 4, correct?
Yep.
All right. Out of New England. Give me a minute. Nikki Rocks. Mercedes Martinez. Ariel. And to be a little more newer, I am going to go with Davey N.
Yep.
Davey N, I'm putting in there. Because it would have been easy for me to put a Sasha Banks in there. Mercedes Monet, whatever you want to call her. It would have been easy to put her in there. But for me, I'm a big fan of Deviant. I don't think she realizes how much of a big fan I am. Because she has worked really, really hard, and then came to that point where she was like, "I'm over it. I'm not gonna do anything," and everybody kind of goes through it. And then she left and refocused herself, and she looks like $1 million now. She looks like $1 million. She is working her ass off, and I hope she hears this. That I wish nothing but the best for her. So I would definitely have to have her in my top four. And the other three are easy just out of sake. Nikki Roxx was a consummate professional wrestler back in her time. Um, she was the same thing. Mercedes Martinez and each one has their own thing to give. And of course, I have the sweet spot for Ariel. She's always going to be in my conversation. But those would be the top. Those would be the four for me. There's notables I would definitely give to would be like Lish. Um, I'm lost for one girl right now. I can't remember finger on it. But there's definitely other girls in there, but those would be the top four.
Yeah.
For the guys. Luis Ortiz would definitely be one of them. Brickhouse Baker would definitely be one of them. For the guys, Anthony Rufo, I would have to say is the other one. That last spot, interesting, because there's a lot of guys. There's the Hanson Johnnies. There's the Chase Demontes. The Logans. There's a couple. Let me think of that for 1 second. One guy that comes to mind that I think all the boys, especially the guys from the Tony Rumble or the Jason Rumble days and PWF days, would agree with, and I don't think really got that. Never went anywhere with it, but always would have to be. And I'm probably gonna say the name wrong because I'm just bad with names. But he was half of the Crown Jewels with Jason Rumble. You probably know the name better than I do.
Oh,
Damian Darling? No, Darling Damian?
Damian Darling, maybe, yeah. Or Dark Angelo, or no?
No, because it was a Dutch. I think that was a different person.
Maybe it was
I,
Damian
I,
Darling.
apologize, I apologize. I'm very bad with remembering names. But he used to be Jason Rumble's tag team partner in the Crown Jewels. Um, and I think it's Darling Damian, if I'm right. He was somebody that I thought he was just so fluent and so tactical. He was just so easy to work with. The first time we worked with each other, it was just like it's like I've known him and worked with him for years, and it was just that fluent and easy. And I don't think he ever really got the recognition he deserved.
Yeah.
So I would definitely want to have him somewhere. At least, if not in the top four, he would definitely be up there at some point or another. But he would have to be my guy to be up there, just for that memory's sake. Would be him.
Then, just chiming in, your inner fan of the business, your Mount Rushmore for pro wrestling in general, any era.
Well, we already know. We know Ricky Steamboat's number one. It's Ricky Steamboat. To the point where I got an opportunity to train with Ricky Steamboat, and for him to call me a ring general, I still mark myself out about it.
Yeah.
But Ricky Steamboat, Eddie Guerrero, William Regal, um, I go back because there's just so many guys that give it to. William Regal, Ricky Steamboat, Eddie Guerrero. So it's just so easy to put Benoit there for me, but it's not Benoit. Like Chris Adams would go up there. That last spot is hard for me because there's so many guys that I really, Adrian Adonis, Mount Rushmore. I'll have to go with Ric Flair because Ric Flair was just a consummate. He was the guy.
Yeah.
He was the guy. I'm a huge Sting fan, But yeah, those are probably my four. Those are probably my four. And if you ask me this question in 2 weeks, it'll probably change.
Sure. Yeah, it's
But that
interchangeable.
it's definitely attainable. There should be like your Mount Rushmore and your subcategories,
Right.
like the Mount Rushmore and the rocks underneath it, like
Yeah.
the pillars.
Another gentleman that you mentioned that you worked with. Now, specifically, you got to work with him in ROH, Ring of Honor, Latin Fury, Luis Ortiz. Talk about that experience working with him.
Luis Ortiz. God damn, bro, we've been on this 2 hours. Holy shit. Uh Luis Ortiz, man. Luis Ortiz was man. He was the man. He was he was a hybrid of a lot of different things, full of intensity, full of life. Like he was another guy that me and him clicked, and I think we clicked because we were um, one of very few Puerto Ricans that were out doing this in the East Coast. So we were in a very small group. So I think we had to fight a little harder into it. But he was the man. If I ever have to put a name, like a thing on a person, that would be it. I would have to say he was the man. Like he's the man.
Yeah.
He's another one that reinvented fire. He was a big horror fan, so he was always trying to do stuff with his horror stuff. Then he came out and started developing the mask and stuff like that. He custom made, and he was just the guy, just that guy. He was a mix of a bunch of different talents all rolled into one powder keg. So Luis Ortiz is definitely the guy.
And what would you say is your biggest takeaway working with Tommy Dreamer for Primal Conflict?
My biggest takeaway was the opportunity of working with him and being told that, hey, Len, if it wasn't for what happened, you would probably be looked at for us. And at that time, they were closing up, so that could have been him just saying what he's saying just to say it, But I'll take it. I'll take it. I had fun with him. He was adamantly about putting me over at that event. We did the rookie. So I hate being a wrestler and being a booker. Um, Something I hate to do is if I'm going to book a show, I don't want to wrestle the show. Um, but at the same time, I was in a position where I was still out actively wrestling. So then to be a booker and a wrestler and then being booked against the talent
Yeah.
is something I don't like to do. A lot of people don't realize is I did not book myself against Tommy Dreamer. I was forced to wrestle Tommy Dreamer. And I mean forced as in not in like you got no choice but to wrestle him. I was forced because of the fact that I didn't want to wrestle him. It was more of a we worked as Primal Conflict so hard to get it to this show for it to be this big for us that between Rock D'Alessandro and Anthony Rufo and Steve Sadler were like, no, we want you to wrestle Tommy. You're gonna wrestle Tommy. This is your opportunity for you to wrestle Tommy. So I was pretty much made to wrestle Tommy. Tommy then in turn, we had him all set up to go over. I was always a believer that certain people I'm happy, star goes over. Tommy's like, no, we gotta put you over. You're the guy here. No. And we had a discussion about that, and then I believe I went over that night. Did I forget if I went over?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I
No,
don't remember.
I still think he went over.
Yeah, I think so.
But originally it was set up for him to go over, and he wanted me to go over. It's just back and forth with it, and I was like, absolutely not. But being able to be told that in hindsight that I couldn't have an opportunity if things had been in a different way, or if I had approached ECW at a different time,
Yeah.
who's to say things would have been different?
Right.
So but to have that said to me is something I'll take away from that.
And what advice do you have for somebody who's looking to get into the business now?
Don't. Don't. Advice for getting into business. I tell people all the time, go to school. Stay in school. First off, stay in school. Learn everything you can. Figure out a trade, something. Wrestling, as good as you think you're gonna be, or you could become. You need something to fall back on. Wrestling is not gonna pay your bills for the rest of your life, unless you're really smart and you make it to that next great level. Be smart about you. Be smart about your life and your finances. I wish I would have been told that in the beginning. Be smart about your life and your finances. Have a backup plan, and have a backup plan for that backup plan. Outside of that, have a good attitude, have a good work ethic, Find yourself a good school. Learn the basics. Learn from as many people as possible, but stay dedicated to your school. Don't travel to every other school just to learn because you can pay a few dollars. No, you don't learn that way. Learn from your school. Learn other aspects from other places, but be dedicated and loyal to your school. Until they tell you you can do other things in other places. Don't 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 think because you go do ring crew at a place and they know you're working out that's your cue to go. Hey, we need a person. You want to jump in a battle royal? No, no, you're not ready. You're not ready. I see this all the time. Everybody's a promoter nowadays. Everybody's like, oh, I get free talent. No, guys, you're not. You only have one time to make your first impression. Don't waste it.
Yeah.
Wrestling is not going anywhere anytime soon. Don't waste it. Hone your skills. Understand the ins and outs of it. Figure it out. Wait for it to mean something. Wait for your first one to be in a place where you can invite your family and your friends to it, and that you can appreciate it and get a feel and love for it. Than to just make your first time in the middle of some schmomo, place somewhere where nobody knows you. You know what I'm saying? Because nowadays everything's about filming. So you film it, yeah, maybe nobody knows you and you messed up your match and nobody's gonna care. But you're filming it, you're gonna put it out there, now you're showing everybody what you did. So there's no time. So you never lose it. So take that into account. Just learn, be smart about it. Learn and be smart about it.
And a couple more names to touch on before we finish here. The late Mr. Biggs and his wife Chris were a part of the New England scene for a long time, whether it be ring rentals or Mr. Biggs wrestling, or Chris, of course, in charge of the music. Your experiences with them over the years.
He was always a great guy, man. He was just a nice guy. You know what I'm saying? He just wanted to be part. That was his thing. He just wanted to be part. And that's what he was. He was part. We just had fun with him. He was a good guy. I have nothing bad to say. He was a good guy.
Another one, Bert Centeno, who obviously was with World Wrestling Federation for many years and all over the New England
Versatile,
scene.
great individual, man. I haven't spoken to him in a few years, but always a great guy. He was always very respectful. Always in my early times when I started meeting with him. Always gave me great advice and helped me out whatever he could, and vice versa. We had a couple of good stuff with you, as a matter of fact, at your shows. So great guy, great individual, a lot of knowledge.
Suicidal Silva.
Suicide Silva was a interesting cat. Good kid, just an interesting cat, kind of reserved. Um, but a good kid. I mean, he was another young cat just trying to make his way through the wrestling world. But always respectful, always had a smile on his face and ready to go.
And the third man in the ring is always obviously the referee, a very important role. Did you have a favorite referee to work with over the years?
Favorite ref to work with?
Yeah.
Um, Tony P. He's more modern day
Yep.
ish, but Tony P was definitely somebody that of all the rest I've worked with was probably the most fun. I mean, Zach Carter was always fun. Richie Bass was always fun. Um, Kevin Quinn was always a good time. Um, Tony P though was fun because Tony P just had the referee look. He just has that look. He just like I could see him refereeing an old school bow tie Madison Square Garden show.
Right.
So he just has that look to him. He's not a big guy. He's small. He's thin. He makes everybody look. I mean, he makes everybody look that much taller and bigger. So I think he had the just the right package for
Yep.
a referee.
And you would go on to work for the XWA, not only in ring, but behind the scenes. Memories working with Mike Antonucci over the years.
Ah man, I've known Mike. Whew, long time. I like a lot of guys. I started with him as a wrestler. He booked me for shows, and then it just kind of morphed into me doing more. Just me being naturally me. It just morphed into doing more behind the scenes or whatever. And I got to a point where I started doing more behind the scenes than wrestling. And then I always like to when I'm behind the scenes, I like to live through the eyes of the performers. So if I can make an entrance where it's something look that much bigger, that much grander, as a performer, you're gonna want to perform that much stronger, that much better. You know what I'm saying? So I enjoy doing that. I think he's seen that, and it just progressed throughout the years. to the point where it's like we would like, he would book a show. We would bounce things off each other to the point where he'd open a building. I'd be the guy there building it, putting stuff together, putting shows together with him, and I just basically became a right guy. So I've to this day, me and him still talking, chit chat and stuff. So yeah, he was a great guy, great time.
And as far as the different names go, the last one, Dave Jackson, Chain Link, the Reverend.
Chain Link.
Any memories of him?
Oh man, Chain Link. Chain Link was a character, man. He was a great guy in and out of the ring. In and out of the ring. I had so much fun with him as our little Faces of Fear. A little time we had. He was a great guy, man. It's all I can say. I mean, most people that know him would know him the same thing. He was just fun, open hearted, just a big guy. Big guy, greatly missed. But great guy. I mean, that's all I can say all day long. He was just a great fun guy.
What would you say the greatest challenge of being a pro wrestler is?
Greatest challenge. Ooh, that's a good question. Greatest challenge about being a pro wrestler is, I think a lot of people think it's getting to the end goal. I think everybody's aspiration is like, oh, I want to be a pro wrestler because I want to go here and be there, and it's great to have those goals and you want to be there, but I think you have to be more realistic. So I think the most thing you have to do is have a realistic perspective of what your goals are. Maybe break up your goals into smaller goals that you can achieve easier to get to your ultimate goal. I think again, I think everybody sets themselves too high from the get go, and it's everybody has the sprinting mentality before the crawling. Right. So yeah.
We recently lost Robbie Ellis. Any memories of the Sports Illustrated legend?
Why do you say that without laughing?
Yeah, no. Whenever I think of the Sports Illustrated legend, it was a fun time. Fun memory.
Robbie Ellis was a cool individual cat. Definitely a. I speak of wrestling in characters, and that's he was a character. He was definitely a character. Yeah, another guy that I was pulled aside and said, "Jose, I need you to work on me. You're not in trouble." That was another one with Robbie Ellis, where we did a show at the PAL, and he had his his shtick, his stuff he always did, and his thing was he used to do the big splash from the top. So here I am laying in the ring waiting, makes his way up to the top, and he goes to do his little thing before he jumps, and he falls off to the outside.
Oh no!
And I'm just laying there like, oh no. And I kind of look back, and he pops up like, did anybody see that? And runs back up to the top of the rope, and looks down and goes, and then he jumps. And I'm the whole time just laying there like, this can't be happening to me right now. But to know Robbie is to love Robbie, and that was Robbie.
Yeah,
he did it with a smile.
Yep. And in closing, fast forward many years from now, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
As somebody that just deeply cared about the wrestling business. I love that. I mean, I everybody has aspirations to go to the big time, to do the big thing. And I did also, but I was also realistic. I have a family. It's hard to make that jump, to make that leap of faith, to be on the road, and I couldn't do it. So I was very much content with staying home and being the weekend guy or whatever. But I cared sometimes more for this business than myself or my family, and that's sad to see. It's hard to say sometimes. But I do, even to this day. Even as far as last night, I was given the opportunity to work with 6 young ladies during a show last night and help them put their stuff together. I care. Sometimes I care too much. But I care. And a lot of guys don't. A lot of guys are very singular. So I just want people to know that I really do care and love this business to the point where I would do whatever I could to help somebody else look as good as they needed or want to be. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Well, Jose, thank you so much for taking the time today, joining us here for the East Coast Intensity. Jose Perez.
Before you cut me off, though, I have to say one small thing.
Let's hear it.
Shout out to one individual person. Sean Donovan. All right, this is a gentleman named Sean Donovan out of Jersey. You probably know him as one half of Santa Slaughter. Sean Donovan likes to lick a lot of donuts before shows.
Okay.
So if Sean Donovan ever gives out donuts at a show, don't eat the donuts.
Okay. Good.
Don't eat the donuts. Okay,
that might be the best piece of advice you've given today. I mean, that's a big one. That's big.
There it is. And please tag him in this.
I will. For the East Coast Intensity, Jose Perez, I'm Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Take care, guys.